This is Banjo, and today I'm going over the startup procedure for the MiG 21Bis found in DCS World. The first step is to turn on battery heating on the back of the right wall panel, followed by primary and secondary PO750 current converter. Next, turn on the DC battery and DC generators. Now, on the right panel, we're looking for the radio switch, enable it, as well as the flight data recorder, and call in at the ATC and request startup clearance. We can see on our knee board, channel 7 is Kobileti. We'll set our radio to channel 7 and call the ATC.
Кабулете, сотый, запуск.
1-0-0. Кабулете, запуск разрешаю.
With clearance from the ATC for startup, the next step is to enable the fuel pumps for the first, third, and drain tanks, followed by the fire extinguisher and APU on switches. Uncage the throttle and hold down engine start for 2 to 3 seconds until you hear the engine start to start up. The startup sequence takes approximately 45 seconds to reach optimal RPM. Interrupting it could overload the electrical system, so be sure to wait until the engine start light goes out. In the meanwhile, while the engine starts up, we could set up the RSBN and PRNG navigation systems. In this case, I'm setting both stations to channel 15, as displayed on the RSBN channels page of the kneeboard. ARC stations can be set up as desired as well. In this case, sector 3-1 channel 3 is pretty close to this airbase, so I'll set it in as well in case I decide to use the ARC navigational system. Since I'll be using the RSBN navigation system, I'll be sure to set it into RSBN navigation mode. At this point, the engine start cycle light has gone out, so we can now enable the AC generator, as well as the gyros for instruments 1 and 2. At this point, we begin to set up the right wall panel. The top 2 rows are needed for basic flight, as these are all your systems including KPP, NPP, RSBN, gyro, etc. The 3rd and 4th rows are weapon systems. Since I'll be using weapons in this flight, I'll be enabling them as well. For safety purposes, you could leave the missile controller power off until you're in air, as this could be considered the master arm for the missile systems on the aircraft. Next, place the radar into standby mode using the middle position of the left toggle switch, and set up the radar warning receiver as desired. On the left panel behind the throttle, we can see the flap control box. We'll be setting this for takeoff flaps. Finally, we'll close the canopy. Click on the rod at the top of the canopy to close it, and seal it using the lever just above the gear lever. As a final step, I'll set up the ASP gun sight by enabling the fixed net and pipper, and setting brightnesses for both, and I will set the target width for 10 meters. At this point, the aircraft is ready for taxi, so we can call the ATC and request authorization to taxi.